بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واعلموا أنما غنمتم من شيء فأن لله خمسه وللرسول ولذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. قال الحكيم في كتابه الكريم وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة واركعوا مع الراكعين. There are 9 things on which Zakat is payable if they reach the taxable limit. What are those 10 things? They are: number 1, wheat; barley, number 2, dates, number 3, raisins, number 4, gold, 5, silver, 6, cow, 8, sheep, including of course goat, 9, and as an obligatory precaution, wealth is also liable to zakat according to some jurists, of course, and these are the 10 things on which zakat will be paid if they reach the taxable limit. If you have household gadgets, household appliances like chairs, sofa, couch, kitchen utensils, personal belongings like watch, like gold objects such as those worn by women, those things are not liable to zakat, is not paid on them. So zakat is paid only on wheat, barley, raisins, dates, and of course gold, silver, camel, cow, sheep, and of course according to some scholars as an obligatory precaution it should be paid also on wealth in business. And of course it is the duty of a sane and free person to pay zakat. If a person is not free, it is not his obligation to pay any zakat. Zakat is the duty of a person who is free, who is not a slave, who is not in custody of someone else. Now when it comes to being sane or insane, of course there are different issues. Sometimes you have to pay zakat, and sometimes of course when you are not sane, of course, or when someone is not sane, then zakat is not paid. So sometimes it's paid and sometimes it's not paid, depending on what the object is. For example, if wheat, barley, raisins, dates, and such things reach the taxable limit, it is necessary for any individual to pay zakat on them, irrespective of whether he is sane or not, whether he is adult or not, whether he is whether he has been sane for sometimes and insane for other times, of course. But he must be free and he must not be a slave. And of course another condition that has to be taken into consideration is that that thing from which he is going to pay zakat should be in his possession for at least 11 months. He must pay zakat on them on the 12th month. When the 11th month is complete and he is going to enter the 12th month, he has to pay zakat on those objects if they have reached the taxable limit. And of course, if they have not reached the taxable limit, then zakat is not payable. Because the term khums, I have in the previous sessions, I used to speak about khums, and now when I'm trying to explain the rules regarding zakat, I sometimes mistakenly use the word or the term khums. So we are in this session trying to discuss, trying to elaborate on the rules of zakat. Now, when it comes to gold, silver, and any other merchandise, of course, the owner has to be sane and has to be adult. Gold, silver, and any other merchandise. The owner must be sane and must be adult. Otherwise, zakat is not payable on such things which he possesses. As far as the wheat, barley, raisins, and dates are concerned, it's not necessary that the person who possesses these things should be adult. No. Zakat can be taken from his property even if he is not sane. Of course, payment of zakat on wheat, barley becomes obligatory when they are recognized as wheat and barley. For example, if you have a piece of land on which you have irrigated wheat and barley, but the plants are still standing, the plants are green, and you have not harvested, you have not even threshed the wheat, the grains from the chaff, then in this case, insofar as you have not threshed the grains from the chaff, zakat not payable and zakat cannot be paid. When you have harvested and threshed the grains from the chaff, and when you have calculated the amount of the wheat and barley and came to learn that, of course, wheat and barley, they have reached the taxable limit, in this case, it is necessary that you should pay the zakat. And of course, you should note that people who live in cities and towns, they do not actually need to know the rules of zakat because normally they don't have lands to cultivate, they don't have wheat, raisins, and dates and such things. They don't have camels, cows, and sheep. Now, the rules of zakat are applicable to those living in rural areas, to those people who have lands, and to those people who rear cows, sheep, and cattle. That's why you have those people who live in rural areas, and of course, whose profession is to keep cows and animals, of course, and to cultivate wheat, barley, and such other grains. They have to be concerned. They have to understand the rules regarding zakat as far as the people living in cities, and those who do not have such things. Of course, it is not necessary and it's not obligatory on them to learn the rules of zakat. Of course, knowing the rules is better than not knowing, and it's better always to understand something, to seek knowledge, as it is very important to know something than not to know. And of course, zakat on dates becomes obligatory when the Arabs call it tamr, because dates, as long as it's green and it is on the tree and it has not been plucked, zakat is not payable on that, on the dates. And so far as they have not been plucked, and as so far as they have not been called tamr. Tamr is a special kind of date. It should not be green, and it should not be a fresh type of date which is not called tamr. Of course, it has a different name in Arabic. So there are actually 3 types and 3 kinds of dates which have to be differentiated when it comes to the rules of giving zakat. And for establishing the liability of zakat on items like wheat, barley, of course, raisins and dates, it is not a prerequisite that they should be in control of the owner, or that you should have the right, the authority to have discretion over those things. Even if those things are not under your control, even if you do not have the discretion, of course, over those things, it is necessary that khums should be paid. The Islamic government or the qualified mujtahid can take out the zakat from those things. As far as the gold and silver and other merchandise are concerned, it is necessary that they should, it's necessary that they should be under your control. You should have discretion over them, and that zakat is not paid on them unless you have discretion over them. And of course, as I mentioned, it's necessary for the owner when it comes to gold and silver, it's necessary that the owner should be sane. And if the owner remained innocent, of course, throughout a year or part of it, zakat will not be obligatory on those things, on gold, silver, and similar merchandise. And it's very necessary to note that in the present time, in which we use paper notes, currency notes, not gold, not silver, for bargaining, for purchasing things, in the present times, even zakat is not payable on gold and on silver. Zakat used to be payable in the previous time when people used to buy things using gold, when people used to buy things using silver. But in the present time, no one gives gold and buys something. We instead have, of course, we have paper notes, bank notes, and which is called, of course, currency notes. We use these things to purchase things. And sometimes even today we use credit cards to buy things like what we need in our daily life. So gold and silver are no longer used as in currency. They are not used for transaction. So zakat is not payable on them, on gold and silver. Though if, of course, if they are used, or if a time comes in which gold and silver are used for transaction as a currency, then zakat has to be paid on them, and the rules regarding zakat will be applicable to them. Now, what about the coins which ladies, which women and girls wear? Is zakat payable on them or not? Of course, the position is the same. Zakat is not payable on the gold coins and also on the gold biscuits which people have or keep in their houses. There are people who invest on buying golds and buying gold coins and gold biscuits, and they wonder about whether zakat is payable on those coins or not. Of course, zakat is not payable on gold coins and also on silver coins, and zakat is also not payable on the gold biscuits which you might keep in your bank account or in your house. So, but of course, khums should be paid on them if they are in biscuits and if they are not used. Like khums is paid on gold biscuits if they have been purchased with the money from which khums has not been paid. And khums is also paid on the gold coins which is not used for ornamental purpose, for adornment, for beautification. Because normally people don't wear coins for ornamental purpose. They buy coins to keep them in their safes or in their accounts or in their houses for investment purpose. Now, there are two cases. Either they have bought the gold with the income of the same year, or they have bought it with the money from which khums has been paid. If, of course, in the second case, there is no problem, there is no tax, there is no khums payable on it. But if they have been purchased with the income of the present year, and if they are bought in the form of biscuits, in the form of coins, then of course khums should be paid, not zakat. Zakat is not payable. As far as other jewelries are concerned, now if they are used for ornamental purposes like necklace, like gold watch, like rings and such other things which are used for beautification, for ornamental purposes, their khums will not be payable on them, and zakat will also not be payable on them. Now, there is a question when it comes to barley, wheat, and raisins and dates. The important question is this, that what is the taxable limit of such things? What is the taxable limit? Of course, zakat on wheat, barley, dates, and raisins becomes obligatory when their quantity reaches the taxable limit, which is 300 sa. Sa is an Arabic measurement, which is equal to 847 kg, 847 kilograms. If these things, wheat, barley, dates, and raisins, these four things, reach the taxable limit 300 sa, which is equal to 847 kilograms, zakat has to be paid from them. Now, of course, there are again questions as to how much is the amount of zakat which should be paid. Normally, people living in predominantly Sunni populated countries, they believe that 1/10 of these things has to be paid as zakat. No, that is a misconception. There is no 1/10. There are different cases and different suppositions. At times, of course, at times you have to pay 1/10 of these things as zakat, and at other times you have to pay 5% of these things, 5% of these things as zakat. The first one is 10% and the second one is 5%, 5%. Depending on whether you cultivate, whether you have grown these things you have irrigated the land or you have not irrigated the land, on whether you have cultivated, received the land and the wheat and barley, raisins and dates with the water, which with rainwater, or with the canal water, or from the bucket water. Now, in case of bucket water, of course, sometimes, of course, there's no zakat. Zakat is not payable. I will mention the rules and details because this has to be clarified. Now, sometimes you have to pay 10% of the wheat and barley, raisins and dates, which have reached the taxable limit. Sometimes you have to pay 10%, and sometimes you have to pay 5% of these things as zakat. If a person and members of one's family consume the grapes, barley, wheat, on which payment of zakat has become obligatory, and if, for example, he gives these things to a poor person without the intention of zakat, and then the question is whether he has to pay zakat or not, because the things have been given away. Either it has been given to the poor or to the needy, or it has been consumed. Now, considering that these things had reached the taxable limit, and before the zakat was paid, it was dispersed, it was given out to different people. In this case, the ground religious authorities have said that zakat has to be paid. Zakat has to be paid. And if the owner of wheat, barley, dates, and grapes dies after zakat on it has become obligatory, the quantity of zakat should be paid from his estate. Even if a person has died, zakat has to be paid. That is an important issue. And of course, as I mentioned in the previous program, zakat has been stressed and emphasized more than khums, and there are verses in the Holy Quran that explicitly refer to the concept or to the institution of zakat. And if a person purchases wheat or barley or dates or grapes and knows that the seller has paid zakat on them, or doubts whether or not he has paid it, it is not obligatory on him to pay the zakat or to pay anything from what he has purchased. And if the weight of wheat, barley, dates and grapes is about 847 kilograms when they are wet, and they get reduced to less than 847 kilos when they are dry, again, it's not obligatory on the buyer or on the owner to pay zakat, because when you pay the zakat on such things, they must be dry, they must not be wet, because sometimes when you reap these things, when you take it from the field, they look to be heavy, they look to be heavier than when they are dry, and when they have dried, then they become light. And when you want to measure such things, they should be light, they should not be weight. Otherwise, if they reach the taxable limit when they are weight, the taxable limit, as I mentioned, is 847 kilograms, then in this case, zakat will not be payable. Zakat will not be payable. Now, as I mentioned, there are three kinds of dates. Those which are dried up, rules regarding zakat payable on them have already, of course, been explained as I explained it. The second one, those which are eaten when they are ripe. And the third one, those which are eaten before they are ripened. As for the dates which are eaten when they are ripe, if its weight comes to 847 kilograms, after having dried up, zakat on it becomes obligatory. Only after they have been dried up. But if they are wet, again, zakat will not be payable. And of course, it's always clear and tangible that once you pay zakat on your property, on the wheat, raisins, cows, and animals, then zakat will not be payable on those objects once again. Next year, it's not necessary for you to pay zakat on them because you have purified your property, you have purged them, you have cleansed them, and it's not necessary for you to pay zakat on them once again. These are some of the rules regarding zakat, and of course barley, wheat, raisins, these the rules, some of the rules, of course, not all of them were mentioned. Now to conclude, the last point which I have to mention is that if wheat, barley, dates and raisins on which zakat has become obligatory or of good quality and inferior quality, now the obligatory precaution is that zakat for each of the two categories should be given separately from its respective type. Of course, zakat has to be given from the superior, from the good quality, and also from the inferior quality. You cannot give zakat of the superior quality from the inferior quality. That is a kind of deception. Inshallah, in the next session to come, I will elaborate on the rules regarding the zakat of sheep, cows, and goat. Until then, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا يا ربنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا يا